Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Brexit event, the Brexit networking event with Fingal Dublin Chamber in conjunction with Fingal Dublin Chamber Skillnet. On behalf of the Chamber, we're delighted to be a promoter and involved with Skillnet Ireland through our Fingal Dublin Chamber Skillnet network. We've engaged with Skillnet for almost 2 years, and we found it a very successful partnership indeed. I would like to thank all of you for attending here this morning at this event, and I'm sure you'll find it useful in providing some information pertaining to Brexit, forthcoming Brexit on January 1st. I want to welcome everybody who's on the call. I'd like to just say a quick thank you and welcome to our 3 panelists. We've got Giles O'Neill from Enterprise Ireland, we've got Maria O'Reilly from Exportability, and we've got Derek Dunn from Manifesto. And first of all, I just want to hand you over to our network manager, Fergal Malone, and he will do the formal welcomes to the panelists in particular, but he'll give you some information relevant to today's events and other events we have coming through our Skillnet. So over to you, Fergal.
Thanks, Anthony, and again, you're all very welcome to this morning's Brexit update. I look after the Skillnet network, as Anthony says. I suppose over the last number of years, we have focused on subsidising training for businesses within the network and within our membership. Over the last couple of months, we have explored further areas of subsidised training. But before I come to that, I just want to bring your attention to a couple of things that may be helpful for our audience today. Tomorrow we will have a remote customer care excellence training session that'll be held remotely, obviously, and we will also on Friday we are bringing a building resilience course to everybody free of charge, so that might be of interest to our membership attending today. You can share that with your friends and family if you like. Also next Tuesday and for the next 4 weeks on Tuesday mornings, particularly interesting for our membership here today, is leading through change. So this is a leadership training course for logistics and related industries, particularly interesting around this time. And I suppose, what do you need to know as a leader at this moment in time to get us through Brexit and potentially through COVID as well, but primarily through Brexit. So they're just a couple of things where we can assist your business. They are subsidized courses. I mentioned that we are now embarking on Skills Connect. So this is a program from the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science through Skillnet Ireland. So what we do in these programs is we fully subsidize the training of employees who have been, I suppose, become unemployed due to COVID-19. So anybody who has become displaced, your family members, friends, colleagues, please send them in our direction. So what we can provide is a career transition program over 2 to 3 days, followed by full training, a full intensive training, normally between 5 and 10 days of training for their new career. So that's an important message that I want to get out today, that we are here to help, and we want to help in those who have been displaced due to COVID-19. So that's, I suppose, the news update from Skillnet Ireland and from the Fingal Dublin Chamber Skillnet. I'm happy to pass you over to introduce Giles O'Neill from Enterprise Ireland, who has joined us this morning. Giles is going to take us through some of the assistance available through Enterprise Ireland and some of the assistance pieces available to you all. Okay, Giles.
Thank you very much, Fergal. And for those of you that joined something similar at a similar time yesterday, please forgive me, you may hear the same messages, but that's okay. Look, thank you for asking me to join you this morning. This is a testing time. It's testing everybody's ability to be flexible, to be innovative, to be resilient. But I have to say, in terms of the businesses that I'm dealing with, that despite everything that's going on, there's still a level of confidence in exporting companies that's quite remarkable. I shared these numbers recently, but we had our virtual International Markets Week where 700 exporting companies took part, and the week before last, and we did a survey prior to that. And roughly speaking, we asked people the level of business that they had experienced for 2020 and what they expected the full year outcome to be. A third of them forecasted a drop in business, a third remained the same, and a third had growth in 2020. And when asked about 2021, 57% saw growth opportunities in 2021. Now, the September Purchasing Managers Index data did register a significant drop in confidence. It's gone below that 50 level, which shows a sort of, in terms of a pulse survey, a drop in confidence. And we know, and I'm sure the people on the call, that confidence has dropped a bit. We're in a very volatile, fragile environment with COVID and Brexit together. It really isn't helping. So what do you do as a business with limited resources and all these things coming at you? The first thing to say is don't panic. Take a breath and decide and take advice on those issues that are critically important to your ongoing business operations. Now, what do I mean by that? I think you should write them down. I think you should have two columns. I think you should have one heading in one column saying selling and one heading in another column saying buying. And look, I'll cut to the chase on this. There's a stack of advice, really good advice, on the things you have to do to prepare for Brexit. And yesterday I gave one example, and I'll use it again. So if you look at Carol Lynch's from BDO, the 8 steps to get Brexit ready, really sound advice and very simple and very easy to use. If you Google it, it'll pop up. If you want me to share it in the chat function at the end, I'm happy to do it. It'll help. But even 8 steps sounds a bit daunting. So going back to the point I said about selling and buying, if you're selling into GB, Great Britain, goods now, right? The question you've got to ask is, who's going to do the customs declarations for you? Now you need to decide, you need to look at the numbers, you need to look at the data that you'll need. Derek knows far more about this than I ever will. The 56 points of data. Look at how easy or how easy it isn't to get all that data, and look at who in your business will do it and have they been trained. There's some great training around. The LEOs, local enterprise offices, are providing training. Skillnet Ireland is providing training. I know that there's nearly 1,000 people going through that virtual Skillnet course around this topic of filling in a customs declaration. Now, I've heard it a lot as well, that in terms of who's going to do it, my distributors, my freight company will do it. They'll do it for me. It's not my problem. And that's great. And in many ways, they're in a much better position to do it than you will be, because they have a lot of the data that is required. And if this is the case, please have the conversation with them. Give them your tariff classification codes. Ensure that they are geared up to do it. And if they haven't taken on additional people or reallocated people within their teams to do it, you need to make sure that they do. You need assurances, an agreement, a timeline. You don't want any delays come January the 1st. You don't want any issues around unhappy customers in the UK. You have to ensure that they're geared up to do it and that there's a commitment from them to do it. And it's the same for receiving your goods into the UK. So you get them off the island, but who has the responsibility for the importation side? And have you had that conversation with your British customers? Your freight logistics company may well offer that service as well. But again, if they do, there will probably be cost implications. But be clear on who has that responsibility and how it's going to be delivered. And look, it's the same for buying, importing products. all the same questions, but just in reverse. So anyone importing products needs to address this now. And I know, speaking to the IIFA yesterday, they are going to launch a campaign to build awareness around this through their membership to get the message out. Now, in terms of, I was asked to talk about the supports available. Enterprise Ireland has just launched its Brexit readiness checker, and I'm pleased to say that I can share that with everybody, and I will share it in the chat function when I've stopped speaking. This is really simple. It's a set of 32 questions around each area of Brexit exposure. It produces your own report, so it's a customized report for your business based on your answers. And it produces a short list of things that you need to get done, and it also provides you with direction as to what resources you can use to help you get those things done. It takes 10 or 15 minutes to complete. It's a clever tool, and I'd encourage you to use it. Depending on where you are, your local enterprise offices have a huge range of supports available. You just need to ask somebody for help. Or don't take all this on yourself. Ask somebody within your company to take responsibility for this. They have high-level introductions to customs. They have lunch and learn sessions. They have Brexit mentors. Brexit mentors are people that know a lot more about this than we ever will. Customs, logistics, finance, currency, supply chain. We'll be talking to Marie in a minute. There's a great network. You've got your own great network, and I've mentioned Skillnet earlier. But this network here, we should be talking, and you should be using it as much as you can. People have experience in this. Just ask. From Enterprise Ireland's perspective, we did get 20 million to invest in companies to build this customs clearance capacity. And again, going back to what I was saying, if you aren't going to be doing your customs declarations yourself, please tell your logistics provider, if they haven't geared up, for goodness sake, talk to Enterprise Ireland, because they can get up to €9,000 per employee that they take on to build that capacity. The Brexit expertise, we have mentors just like the Leos do, and we also have Be Prepared grants. But to be honest, with the exception of the 20 million, where we're trying to get capacity into the system to process these customs declarations, it's getting a bit close to January the 1st. For plans, action is really needed, and it's your action now. And anything we can do to help, we will. Thanks, Fergal.
Many thanks, Giles. Very informative. We know that there's a lot of supports available there from Enterprise Ireland. I encourage any business who wants to avail of those supports to contact you or your office. Indeed, you can come through us at the Chamber if you have any inquiries. As well as each of the speakers speak with us today, I'd encourage you, if you have questions, to use the question and answers function at the bottom. You can submit your questions there, particularly for Giles there, for any of the supports, any questions on those supports. So next up is Marie O'Reilly from Exportability. So Marie is going to take us through some of the, I suppose, the watch outs, what we have to watch out for in terms of supply chain, and what we can do to circumvent any problems there. So I'm going to hand you over to Maria. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning, Fergal. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too. And I'll leave you to it. Maria's going to share a presentation with us, as well as some of her insights.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Maria.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to actually share my screen with everyone. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be here today. I'm just going to share a presentation with you. Okay. So today we are looking at the supply chain, the transport, really the transport aspect to your supply chain, and what you really need to be doing over the next months. Now, I'm sure many of you have already many things in place, plans in place, and preparations already taking place, and discussions with carriers, etc. So let me just run through this presentation with you. Okay, just to introduce myself, my name is Maria O'Reilly. My business is Exportability and MOR Consultants. So I act as an independent logistics consultant and training provider. I have experience in the business over 30 years. So I was managing director with container ships quite a while back, and since then have had my own business in training and development. So yeah, my experience, I suppose, having experienced working in the industry, I'm very aware and can relate very much to, I suppose, being in your shoes with the complexities that you're faced with Brexit and, of course, with COVID-19. So we've had many things to deal with employees, with business, etc., over the last months, and now we really have to look at how are we actually going to get ready to prepare for Brexit coming on the 1st of January. So what are we doing right now in terms of looking at our carriers and our supply? So looking at the type of carriers that we might be working with, these are names and logos that you're going to be familiar with. They may be people, maybe companies you're working with, they may not. So really it depends on just looking at, who are your carriers and what are they doing for you right now? What are the conversations you really need to be having with these carriers to see how are they going to get, so there won't be any disruption to your supply chain over the coming months. Okay, so looking at a risk assessment on your transport chain, how can you avoid disruption? So, for example, if it's a case that you are shipping, all your cargo is moving into the UK or from the UK, clearly there are things that you need to do to kind of prepare for that. So who are the carriers you have and why do you have them? So if it's a case that you have carriers that are doing overnight into the UK, and that's where your cargo needs to be. So it's a case of really having a look to see what are the carriers doing. Are they preparing for Brexit? Do they have a plan? I'm sure you've had many conversations with them by now, but what are the type of questions that you're asking, and what are the answers that you're getting back? I did have experience of speaking to a client just this week who mentioned that, and this is quite a big exporting company who would use UK as a land bridge. They've asked their carriers what kind of disruption can they expect in making the bookings, etc. And the answer that they got, in fact, was that there would be very little disruption. It would just be a case of maybe making the booking slightly earlier in the day. Now, to hear something like that at this point of where we are running towards Brexit, those kind of answers would be, to me would be a big sign to say, okay, I need to go and have a proper chat with these guys and see what are they doing. Have they more space capacity? What's happening? What do they know that we don't? So it's really a case of just asking more questions and being happy with the answers that you're receiving. If you don't need to go through the UK for your cargo or for all of your cargo, how can we spread out our risk? So how can we use other ports? Can we use other transport? What are the things that we can do today to avoid going through the UK if that's possible? Is the cargo time sensitive? So the type of cargoes, that's hugely important. Obviously, if you're moving food products either to or from Ireland and you're using UK as a land bridge, that's hugely important. You're looking at a timeline of maybe 20 hours to get it from A to B. What are the alternatives? I suppose in terms of time sensitivity and perishable goods, is it something though that you can put on another ro-ro vessel, say from Dublin into Rotterdam or into Zeebrugge? Is there something that you can do there? Is there a ferry crossing that you can take? So just looking at really, how can you review this and what is the risk if you're not getting it through the UK? Questions again, looking at, is there space availability by your carriers after January? How prepared is your carrier in terms of Brexit preparations? Many of them right now are, they're quite public in terms of what they're saying about Brexit. And what they're doing, what their plans are, but make sure to have those conversations with whoever you're working with, whether that's a road transport operator, sea carrier, air carrier. What are they doing? And I suppose, what are your options? I suppose then really going in, lots of these things, really it's around building trust and building relationships with the people, you know, use your network. Look and see, you know, what are you finding out? Attend, as Giles had mentioned, you know, you can avail of information on many of these Brexit briefings. Each Brexit briefing brings different people, different viewpoints, different experience. So, you know, listen in, pick up the points, use the kind of supports that you have. But discussing with the carriers, you're really looking at asking them, how is Brexit going to impact your supply chain? You're going to look at whether you're taking in foodstuffs, flowers, whatever it might be, or whether it's cardboard boxes. So, you know, depending on the type of product, but how do they think Brexit is going to affect your supply chain? Asking them, what are they planning? Like, what are they thinking of putting on more vessels? Are they going to have more driver accompanied availability on board their vessels? What kind of assurances can they give you, and the continuity of services? What do they know? In many cases, the carriers aren't able to make decisions either. So large organizations, small organizations, everyone seems to be just waiting to see what's going to happen in terms of what will happen next. So, you know, it's really important at this point to keep in contact with your carriers and your suppliers to see what their plans are. You know, again, review your options, ask the questions. And if you figure that you're not getting clear answers, it's not a case of changing carrier, but it may be looking at a case of like, what's plan B, what's plan C? So having other things in your armor. Looking at value added services, many of the carriers now are supplying, will be supplying customs clearance services. So of course there's a cost for this. So, you know, it may be a case that you want to work with them. So, you know, they're bringing your cargo into Ireland, or they're taking your cargo from Ireland. So it may be that you'll actually want to use them. So examining the costs of all of that. What are the costs of the new services? So be very clear. I would say Derek might be able to say a little bit more later in terms of the type of costs that come from the cost of the customs clearance entries. So again, that can be competitive. So it's just a case of bearing that in mind. Again, how the costs of all these new services and things that you might need. So whether you need new extra stock being held in Ireland or in UK or wherever that might be. But if you need to move stock around, obviously you're going to have to investigate the cost of those services, of keeping stock here, customs clearance, etc. Any kind of warehousing services. And also assess how the transport delays may affect your business in terms of cost. One, in terms of the delays it may cause, but also the costs related to the delays. So when there's delays at ports or delays on the road, there's always cost implications. So you need to be aware. At this point, it's like just keeping a note of like as much information as you possibly can, so that you can plan ahead for the next 6 months or 1 year or whatever that might be. The other kind of more customs type, I'm sure Derek might be covering these, so I'll just go through them quickly. It's just making sure that you are registered for EORI, which is the Economic Operators Registration ID system. So anyone who is a trader importing, exporting goods into the EU will need to register for an EORI number, and that can be done through revenue. Making customs declarations, of course, find a broker. It may be with manifest.ie, it may be with another broker. You may already have an independent broker right now. Many brokers are hiring new employees and building new teams based on the numbers of declarations that will be required. Making customs declarations in-house, of course, is another possibility. Of course, as we approach kind of time is moving along, so perhaps you've already had you've already trained staff. You maybe already have identified someone who's going to do that. If not, though, it's a case of really getting on board really quickly, getting people trained up. Also, my recommendation would be to, in general, get your team trained up on understanding what's going on with customs and the kind of implications it will have on your cargo, on your business, and with your customer. Of course, you could also have the option of using both of the above. You could kind of spread the risk, have a customs broker do some of your entries in-house. So really, it's a case, there's no kind of one size fits all. It's really a case of looking to see what is best for you. Customs brokers. Asking the customs brokers, I suppose, the right question. So if you're already working with a customs broker, which you very well may be, it's asking them, do they have the capability of looking after what you expect would be an extra, say 30, 50, whatever the number is, of declarations per week? Do they have the manpower, the experience, and the expertise? So it's really important that the people you're working with have the expertise and the manpower that they can help you when you need them. So you need to make sure that you're working with somebody, a reputable company. Asking them also, like, where is the priority? We've been working together maybe for 10 years, 20 years, whatever it might be. But when it comes to making new declarations, will you have any priority with them? Or have they taken on a new big client that will, that they can't handle your business as much as, they may not be able to give you as much attention as they did in the past? Perhaps you need to look at maybe sharing your business with various brokers and in different ways. Customs declarations. So this is around, making your in-house declarations. There's various off-the-shelf custom software systems available. I've mentioned Time IT. There are others as well. Again, you'll find, I know Giles just mentioned about BDO, there's various other software packages available. So plenty of help in this area. Provide adequate training for your employees. And I think for all employees that are working in your business, it's very important that they have a good understanding and training for what is happening in customs, so that they can explain it in terms of speaking to your clients, etc. Identifying correct commodity codes, of course, is very important, and this can be done through the revenue tariff system. Sorry, I won't spend any time on that because I think you've probably covered it on other briefings, and I'm sure this will come with Derek more on the custom side. Getting really practical about working with revenue, your quality control is like really, really important. So would suggest to always make declarations, so important. Ensure your declarations are on time, have good housekeeping. And if you don't know the answers, ask revenue. They're really open. It might seem at times you don't want to ask. Some companies don't want to ask questions to revenue, but it's really important. They are there to answer those questions. And I suppose it's always making the correct declaration. And this is where the importance of taking responsibility for what it is that you are importing or exporting. You may recall the case some years back where the fruit importer in Ireland was making declarations. I think it might have been I think it was for garlic, but actually they were importing apples. But he was actually imprisoned for making false declarations. So it's really serious. It's a really serious area. It's something you need to be aware of. In terms of just keeping up to speed with what's happening with revenue and your revenue account. If you're new to customs clearance, really important points. Another area for you to be really aware of in terms of trading, making sure that your Incoterms 2020 are up to date, that you're aware of any changes that are coming into play with Incoterms on your cargo. Again, it's always worthwhile to have a review of the Incoterms that you're using with your seller, with your buyer, and looking at going back into your contracts, making sure that you are reducing your risk at all times. This is a really important part. You can obviously refer on this back to the ICC, International Chamber of Commerce. Plenty of information there for you online, or again, go speak with somebody who knows a lot about Incoterms. So in taking action now, Giles mentioned again, and I would completely agree with what he said. It's about, right now, it's a case of don't panic about anything. There's plenty of time for planning and for fact-finding. So my thought would be, like, create your plan of action over the next 4 weeks. Give yourself the next 4 weeks. We're on I suppose, a COVID lockdown right now. We're on a run up to Christmas time. So lots of disruption happening, but the next 4 weeks, you could actually get a lot of things done. I think create your plan, include your team in the plan, set goals, make decisions, what you need to do, start training your people ASAP. There's plenty of training online available that people can be doing at their desktop, especially in customs awareness and Incoterms. If you're unsure of any of this, speak to an expert. There's plenty around. Check out all of the supports available from Enterprise Ireland, from Revenue, etc. Skillnet Ireland, doing lots of training in that area. And use the opportunity of risk assessment to advance your business. So by you taking a full risk assessment on yourself, what are we doing? Are we working with the right carriers? Can we spread the risk in some way? Don't have all your eggs in one basket is my, recommendation. It's not a case of leaving carriers and dropping what you're doing with your transport partners right now, but it's about adding to how can this work in a better way. And I suppose my thoughts on this would be, by getting active, this also reduces the stress levels across the board. So by actually getting active with this right now, you are actually moving along and getting things done. And this can spread out across to your team. So by everybody getting on board together, this helps each other reduce the stress levels. See it that there are opportunities. You may also find ways of reducing your costs in some way on the transport area of your supply chain by doing these risk assessments. The Brexit links, plenty, as we mentioned already. And that's basically it from me. And that's my share over. So thank you very much, everyone. And I hope if there's anything you need, just pop me a message. And thank you, Fergal.
Very good, Maria. Thank you very much. Very informative on supply chain. As Maria says, if you have any questions on supply chain, please feel free to contact the Chamber or myself, and we can pass on any inquiries on to Maria. Of course, from a training side, I would be promoting Skillnet training through the Chamber. We're there to assist you in any way we can if you require training within the business. So next up is Derek Dunn. Derek is coming to us from manifest.ie, and Derek has a long history within the customs declaration side of business. So Derek hopefully will provide us with a lot of information and what we should be doing at this moment in time. So over to you, Derek.
Fergal,
and
Derek.
good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us out today. And thank you very much for Fingal Chambers for facilitating this morning's meeting. First of all, what Bregor was really trying to say very politely is, I'm one of the old dinosaurs who remembers how the customs process works. I've been involved in the customs process for over 30 years, going back to the days when you did have to do declarations crossing the border. And, in many ways it has changed, but in other ways the principles still remain the same and the practice still remains the same. So our business today, we're clearing goods coming from China, Japan, America, and we're covering the customs requirements and doing all of that. So we look forward, or we look ahead to the end of the year, and the UK, who have already left the European Union, so that decision has already been made on their part, and the transition period, which hasn't been extended or doesn't look like it's going to be extended beyond the 31st of January, will mean that customs declarations will be required from the 1st of January onwards. So that's a seismic shift to what we've been used to for the past 30 odd years with free circulation. Goods traveling to and from the UK, there was just no need for customs. That, while it was accounted for on a business-to-business basis, it didn't have to be paid up front. So we face into now reinventing or going back to where we were with customs declarations and dealing with that. The first thing I would say to you is the importance of having your EORI number, your Economic Operator Registered Index. And what that is that's your identity with customs. So it's very difficult for customs to analyze information if it's Derrick Unlimited, Derrick Associates, Derrick Enterprises. Are they one and the same businesses, or are they separate business entities? So to that end, every business entity is given on request a registered EORI number. And that EORI number is how customs know who you are, and it appears on all customs declarations in your name. And if I do a declaration today for a company that's not registered for an EORI number, the clearance process won't proceed until they register. There's two very simple things you can do in relation to that, and if you do nothing else, if you take nothing else away from today's meeting, please take this away. Google EORI validation, and it will bring you to the EU website, and you can put in your VAT number and put IE on front of it. And that's the way Irish Revenue have designed the EORIs. They use your VAT number with IE in front of it, and that will tell you if you're registered or not. If it tells you you're valid, that's great. You know that box is ticked, and you can relax on that one. And if it's not, you can go into Ross and you can register on Ross for your EORI number, and it's a very quick process. It takes less than 5 minutes, and it's set up on the same day, and you're then registered. So really important one, that, because as I say, going forward, if you don't have that EORI number, it will stop clearances. Revenue have been writing to businesses over the past year or so, and they continue to do it. The uptake has been very, very slow. It has picked up a little bit, but for your own peace of mind, make sure that you're there and sorted. The other thing as well, just to kind of clarify a little bit, because there's a lot of the media are having quite a good turn on Brexit. It's the gift for the media that keeps on giving with all the twists and turns and the politics that are in it, etc. But I think it's always worth just clarifying that deal or no deal, the talk about deal or no deal now is in relation to a trade deal. It's not in relation to whether the UK will leave the EU or not. That decision was already made. 31st of January, they left the European Union, and on the 31st of December, the transition period ends. And they will then be treated and dealt with from a customs perspective as what's called a third country. Any country outside the EU is a third country. You hear talk about Canada deals, Australia deals, all the rest. Trading with any of those countries requires customs declarations. And trading with the UK, regardless of whether there's a trade deal or not, will still require customs declarations. The only thing that's up for discussion at the moment is whether duties will be payable on goods. If there's a trade deal, duties, hopefully, if it's a comprehensive trade deal, duties won't be payable. And if it's what Simon Coveney has referred to as a skinny trade deal, they may be payable on some products and not on other products. So really, the devil will be in the detail. I think over the next couple of weeks, we'll see that kind of evolve, and we'll get a little bit of clarity on it. But it's been very hard and very unfair on businesses in the manner in which the negotiations have been going on, because we really don't know. But do always remember there will be customs declarations. So don't be of the kind of false hope or impression that if there's a trade deal, we won't do customs declarations. EU have approximately about 60 to 70 trade deals globally. Probably the major countries that they don't have trade deals with, China and the US. When we look at countries, the oldest trade deal that have got in existence, EFTA, European Free Trade Association, Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland. We trade with those countries today. We have to do customs declarations. So that's my second kind of take home for today. Please don't feel that if there's a trade deal that it won't require declarations, it will. So the next thing I wanted to discuss was, so now that we accept that we're going to have to do trade declarations, I suppose the thing to consider is, what do I need to make a declaration? So whether I take it in-house or whether I do it myself, the key document for making any customs declaration and the key bit of equipment, revenue will take a declaration from anybody. They're not proud. Once it's accurate and once it's reliable information, they will accept it from anybody. However, they do have a requirement that it's in their format and it's delivered in the manner which they require, and that's through their import systems and their export systems. So to do that, you realistically need software. For the bigger organizations, they could look at building their own, but even from experience, some very well IT resource businesses have still taken over 12 months to make that connection with revenue. So we don't have that covered in time now. So you need to look at some of the software providers that are out there. Maria mentioned Time IT, there's ABM Data, there's BH Associates, Declaron is a new player in the market, and it's getting more competitive. So what I'd say to you is, when you're looking at custom software, you know, I treat it like the mobile phone. They'll all have different plans and different pricing structures and everything else, but do the commercials on them. See what meets your requirement. Ultimately, what they're doing is they're packaging up the information that you input and they're delivering to revenue and they're getting the response back. If you hear a conversation over the next 6 months where people are saying, oh, that's delayed by customs, my reaction to that generally is it's extremely unlikely that the customs system will delay your declarations. Today, it would, from me pressing a button and submitting a declaration to getting a positive green response to release the goods, usually takes less than 2 minutes. And that can, a lot of that can be down to the internet connection rather than the customs system. It's very, very quick. If you put in the correct, accurate information, you can get your response very, very quickly. So be cautious when you hear delayed at customs. Generally, it means that somebody in the supply chain or somebody in your chain hasn't completed the necessary declaration and submitted to customs. The other thing, apart from the software, you need is the documentation. The most important document that's used for declarations is the commercial invoice. The commercial invoice is a reflection of the agreement between you and the seller of the goods. It's evidence of the contract. The contract will be informed when you agreed to buy them and meet the requirements legally of having an offer, having an acceptance, and being prepared to be legally bound by the process and the cost involved in that. So the commercial invoice is very important. What a lot of businesses do at the moment, the goods flow and the invoice follows on afterwards. You need to start now talking to your suppliers and saying, we need the invoice in advance. That's a really critical piece to do. Start talking to them and look for that invoice in advance, because that's what your declaration is declared on. Whether I do the declaration or whether you do it yourself, one of the commitments you're making to revenue when you submit it, you're saying, I have an invoice which reflects this declaration, which shows the value, which shows who the buyer and the seller are, which reflects the Incoterms, which we'll talk about in a moment. And you're making that statement that you've got that information. So if you don't have that, essentially it's a false declaration. So please make sure that you talk to your suppliers. So that's your number 3 take home from today, and look for those invoices in time, because you need to start doing a declaration based on that invoice. The next thing I want to talk about is Incoterms. Incoterms have been knocking around since 1936 when the first version of them came out, and we're on version 10 or 12 now, I think, at this stage. The new version came out in 2020. So what Incoterms are, and some of you will have heard of before, such as Xworks, or many of your suppliers may be getting in touch with you now from the UK saying, we want you to deliver it to us on DDP terms, delivered duty paid terms. And what Incoterms do is they're very specific, they're legally binding, and they give you a very clear picture of what your role and responsibility is in the supply chain, and also when the title of the goods passes over. So some of the major retailers in the UK reached out to their suppliers last year and they said, we want you to supply to us DDP, delivered duty paid. And many of them didn't appreciate what the gravitas of that was, and some of them did, and they reacted quite strongly. And they had to put in place some robust business structures to make sure that they could meet that requirement. So what DDP is saying is that you're delivering into the UK with all the taxes, all the duties paid, plus all of the customs clearance formalities completed. So they're putting the onus on you to complete the customs clearance formalities. If you're receiving goods in, that's an ideal trading term for you to purchase goods on DDP terms, because they are being delivered to your door effectively in the same manner that they always have been. And it's up to the supplier to meet the requirements of the clearances, etc. So what a lot of Irish businesses have had to do is set up their business entity in the UK to be the importer of record. Importing from the Irish entity, exporting to the UK entity, importing, and then the UK importer then UK entity then bills out and delivers the goods to the final receiver, and that covers the VAT element of it, and it covers the any duties that are there as well. So again, just look at your Incoterms quite carefully. If you're not familiar with them, there's a raft of information available on the internet, and it will give it to you. But the two extremes, Ex Works means that they're being picked up from your premises and you have nothing to do with the transport or anything else, right up to delivered duty paid, whereas you're delivering them to your customer's premises and you're taking the responsibility all along. Your commercial relationship with your supplier or with your customer is going to determine what the best terms that you can get will be. But it does give real clarity in the situation. We don't use Incoterms really for European trade because it's a free market, but now for the UK, it's definitely one to a conversation to start with your customers or your suppliers. Again, the conversation comes up about whether we should do the customs clearance ourselves, or should we get a broker to do it, or should we get somebody else to do, you know, some way of covering that. And that's really got to be a business decision for your business. And I think there's probably a business plan to be done. Costing on customs declarations is really going to vary. Again, like the software providers, I would say if you're talking to brokers, go out there and look for the best rate that you can get. There are varying rates and the volume of declarations you do and everything else will determine that. So go out and have that commercial conversation with customs brokers and see how you go with that. Then you can do the business plan. Okay, if it's going to cost us X, how much is it going to cost us to have somebody in-house doing this? It could be somebody who it's felt is underutilized or has capacity and they can do the 5 or 6 entries, customs entries a week, and that may very well work fine. But you need to educate those people and you need to upskill them in doing that. Clear Customs is a good way of doing that, and there's other training courses out there as well. If you're only dealing with one particular commodity and one particular customer and you're doing 5 or 6 declarations a week, I would strongly recommend that you look at doing them in-house. That may sound, from me coming from a customs broker, as shooting myself in the foot, but the reality is we've got to be practical about what's coming down the line with it as well. And that's something that I've tried very, very hard to do from the point of view of, sure, it's a good commercial opportunity for our business, but likewise, we've got to think of the bigger picture and we've got to think of the Irish economy and Team Ireland and everything else. So that's why I'm here with you this morning, sharing as much of the information as I can to allow you to make the good decisions and right decisions that will help us to navigate the challenges that Brexit throws up over the next few months. So as I say, the business plan, decide whether you feel you should do it in-house or whether you should do it externally and have that commercial conversation. One thing to consider again is if we find that we don't have a trade agreement, that will mean that there's duty on goods. Food products and agricultural products. Let's just talk about duties at the moment. What their purpose is they're a form of protectionism. Don't think of them as revenue earning because they're not really, but it's protecting indigenous industries. And the EU set the tariffs for goods coming into the European Union. tariffs on foodstuffs are quite high because the European Union recognised that we have to have a solid supply chain when it comes to food. We've got to be able to feed ourselves, not be dependent on supplies coming in from outside the EU. So duties tend to be quite high to stop cheaper labour, cheaper costs flooding the Irish food market. And it maintains the industry that we've got already within the European Union. Manufactured goods, then you'll find that the tariff rates seem to be quite low. For instance, we had a conversation earlier on, just before we came online, discussing about the duty on question we had in relation to wallpaper. Wallpaper, paper products, there is no big paper industry in the EU, 0% duty. If I buy a television, and that television is, and there are electronic industries within the EU that the EU want to protect, the duty rate is, I think it's 10%. So that leads me on to, it's really important to understand where the classification of the goods that you're dealing with. Every item has what's called a commodity code. There's different names for it. HS code for harmonized system, commodity code, nomenclature code. I don't use that one too much because I struggle to pronounce it. But there's several different, but it all comes down to a code specific to your goods. And it's important that you know what they are. If you're dealing with your broker will certainly assist you in getting them, but ultimately, as Maria said earlier on, you bear the responsibility for your customs declaration, so you need to make sure that the right information is being used. And I have come across very subtle, very nuanced changes in tariff codes that have meant that customers have had a bill for duties that they weren't expecting, particularly when it revolves around mechanical or machinery, that sort of thing. There's so many different. One that I came across was a plumbing company who are bringing in elbows and bends and joints for plumbing. The difference between copper and stainless steel fittings was something like 3%. And they had been using the wrong tariff code, and Revenue had done an audit, and Revenue do regular customs audits, looked at the paperwork and they said, we think you should be using this code, and we think it should be 6.5% and not the 3.5% that you've been paying. So that client then got quite a hefty bill and had to settle that up. It wasn't seen as being wittingly or knowingly trying to defraud the state, but it's important to get them. Two sources that you can look at for tariff codes that I would recommend. One is the Intertrade Ireland. Intertrade Ireland have a kind of what I call the layman's tariff available. You can key in names and it will give you options and you can narrow it down like that. The other one, which is the definitive source for tariff codes, is TARIC, T-A-R-I-C, which is the European Union website for tariff codes. So again, make sure and identify the tariff code for your products. Then you can identify any duties that are applicable, etc. At the moment, VAT is payable on goods when they arrive into the state. So if I clear some goods arriving into Dublin Port this morning, we have to pay the VAT to Revenue. That is due to change, although I haven't seen written confirmation of it. I am assured it was originally enshrined into the Brexit Omnibus Bill back in March 29 of last year, that you will now account for the VAT in your VAT return. So let's just look at the connection here from my opening conversation about EORI numbers and your VAT return. When you do a declaration and you show your EORI number, Revenue now know that you've imported goods to the value of, let's say, 20,000 euros, and they are expecting in your VAT return that you account for that 20,000 euros. Hopefully you've brought the goods in, hopefully you've sold them, you've recovered the VAT, and it's a negative or a very minimal payment that you have to make over to Revenue. So try and be clever about them insofar as how you manage your cash flow. We know that the VAT return is every 2 months, but what you want to try and avoid is, bringing something in early January and then having to wait until middle of March before you submit your VAT return and accounting for it at that stage. So again, just be clever about how you do that and be aware of that. So that's my kind of few take homes for today, which I'm hoping you'll find useful and that you'll be able to see how it fits into your business and works into your business. Certainly there will be a lot of technical questions and a lot of individual questions that people may have. And as I say, what we can't cover today, please by all means channel them through Fergal, and I'd be happy to give some guidance on that and to give some direction going forward without a shadow of a doubt. The last piece I just wanted to mention, and I don't want to seem to be reiterate or covering what Maria already mentioned, but I think it's worth keeping in mind as well. Have conversations with your transport partners. In reality, a lot of the transport guys who've been operating between Ireland and the UK don't have a customs experience, and they're very, very busily trying to build that up at the moment and put in the resources in place to make sure that they have it. Now, the phone call that says, "Ah, yeah, we'll be ready to go," and you're left under the false impression that everything is there. Do your due diligence. Understand better what they're doing, how they're going to do it, how they're going to navigate a lot of the requirements. What do they need from you? They should be knocking on your door now and saying, "We will need the invoice in advance of loading on the ferry from the UK," because you can't actually get the goods on the ferry from the UK unless you've created an import declaration in Ireland. So the comfort of doing it when the goods arrive, it doesn't exist. And the reason for that is that Revenue and Dublin Port are looking at the potential pinch points, and the ports will definitely be most definitely be one of them. So to try and counteract that, they're saying you need to have your import declaration made before the goods actually get loaded on the ferry in the UK, so they're not congesting Dublin Port or Dublin Airport. So if you're not getting those phone calls from your transport partners at the moment, you need to start questioning yourself to say, hang on a second, how prepared are these guys? How ready are they to go? So do your due diligence on them, make sure that they are ready to go, get an understanding from them as to what preparations they have in place, etc., and go from there. So Fergal, I know we've covered a lot there, and I've thrown an awful lot in people's directions, and hopefully I didn't go through true facet, but as I say, if anybody has any questions or issues that we can't cover in the Q&A, I'm happy to you and I can work through them.
Very good. Thanks a million, Derek. The thing I liked about that was the list. So nearly like the checklist, EORI number and all the detail that comes after that. You know, get your checklist ready. Make sure that you have all your ducks in a row, and everything becomes a lot more simpler. So thanks very much, Derek, and thanks very much to all our presenters today: Maria O'Reilly from Exportability, Giles O'Neill from Enterprise Ireland, and Derek Dunn from Manifest. If you do require any further information, you can contact us, as I say, and we pass on your queries to Maria, Giles, and Derek, or you ourselves we can. If there are questions, I think Anthony's going to field the questions. If you're there, Anthony. There's a number of questions coming in.
Just waiting.
Okay. Anybody, if anybody...
We've got a couple of questions in here, Fergal. Yeah. Actually, we come back to Jerry, the very first one, since we've just come out of something. Margaret has asked, if she's shipping product from the UK and the invoice is coming from the UK, presumably it'll be at zero VAT, as the VAT will be charged at the port. Is that correct?
Yeah, for exports outside of the EU, there is no VAT applicable because they're leaving the EU, and they'll be going. Then it will be up to the UK importer to account for the VAT. Now, the UK have already announced that they have a VAT deferment scheme similar to what we anticipate Ireland doing, that they do it in the VAT return. But it will be a conversation to be had with their customer as far as who will be doing the clearance process. Are they deferring VAT? The UK have also come up with a deferral of customs declarations. Their main focus is on flow rather than compliance. So they want to keep things moving, and then they're going to try and tidy it up after the event.
So, sorry, Derek, go ahead.
You know, we're bound by the Union Customs Code, which is a set of rules and regulations, and we need to follow those rules and regulations.
So if somebody's importing a product from the UK, the fact that it's leaving a third country and coming into the European Union, which is into Ireland, there's no VAT applicable at Dublin Port or a point of entry.
Okay, for goods coming in, the UK business will not charge them VAT. They don't charge it today.
Yep.
But they do account for it, but they won't charge them VAT. And then it'll be up to the Irish business then to account for the VAT on clearance. But we are waiting for confirmation from Revenue that the VAT deferral.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rick. Just one, maybe Giles. We have a question here from Gerard Fay. In the event of a no agreement, does that mean that the customs borders will move north to the north-south border, or will it be in the Irish Sea? Who's best placed to answer that one?
Sorry, can you hear me, Anthony?
I can, Giles, sorry. Just in the event of a no agreement, does that mean that the customs border will move to north-south, or will it be the Irish Sea border?
No, there won't be a border between the north and the south. That has been agreed, and it is all part and parcel of the Northern Irish Protocol.
The protocol, yeah.
Yeah. So the Northern Ireland, and we do get asked this a bit. If you're sending goods to Northern Ireland, it's like sending it to anywhere else in the EU.
Okay.
That's going to stay, and that is a really important aspect of the whole Brexit issue. And what's been agreed at a political level on the island of Ireland.
Okay, thanks a lot. And there's one other question here. We may have to come back to this one because it's I'm still unclear on it when I read it from Joe Good. Is there anything they need to do differently than what's been presented when shipping from the Czech Republic to the UK on their behalf?
Okay, so it will be Czech Republic being an EU country, and then going to the UK. It will be an export from the European Union, and it will be an import into the UK. So there will be customs declarations at both sides required. Now, whether that export declaration needs to be done in the Czech Republic or whether it can be done at leaving the border crossing in the UK, that's up to the seller of the items. And there's different ways that you can do it, but they're quite efficient. But it will be an import into the UK.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Derek. We have no other questions that I can see on the Q&A. So I suppose it leaves to me just finally to thank Maria, Giles and Derek, and to the Fingal Chamber Skillnet and Fergal in particular for a very informative event. It's been something that's been exercising the minds of a lot of people in Ireland for the last number of years, and even in Dublin, but even in Europe. But it's very much on the near horizon now. I would say if somebody's got any particular queries, if they want to send them into either Fergal, which is fergal@fingaldublinchamber.ie, or into our info@fingaldublinchamber.ie, and we can ask some of the relevant experts afterwards if somebody feels the requirement to get some other questions answered afterwards. So I suppose without further ado, and to thank Maria, Giles and Derek yet again, and thanks for coming in. Thanks to everybody for attending.